Through tears that blur the ink, Sophia DeLuca signs the divorce papers her husband shoves across the mahogany table at his family's Christmas party, her hand trembling over her 7-month pregnant belly, draped in a red designer dress, while the entire Mitchell family erupts in laughter around her. Her mother-in-law, Carol Mitchell, raises a champagne glass in mock celebration as Sophia's husband, Jason, stands beside his pregnant mistress, Brittany Hayes, both of them smiling at the woman they're destroying. But none of them see the phone vibrating insistently beside the legal documents. None of them recognize the name flashing across the screen. Dad. And none of them know they just made the biggest mistake of their lives. None of them. Not one person in this room full of suburban social climbers celebrating with cheap champagne and knockoff jewelry knows that the trembling woman signing away her marriage in tears is Sophia DeLuca, the only daughter of Dominic DeLuca, the Mafia boss whose name makes politicians cross themselves and whose empire controls everything in this city, legal and otherwise. They don't know she owns the house they're celebrating in, bought through shell companies 18 months ago. They don't know she funded Jason's failing architecture firm with DeLuca money. They don't know that her father's enforcers are 10 minutes away. And they definitely don't know that making Dominic DeLuca's daughter cry is a mistake people don't survive. Sophia's hand shakes as she signs page after page, her tears falling onto expensive legal documents that dissolve 3 years of marriage. While Jason's family celebrates like she's a disease they've finally cured, her 7-month pregnant belly presses against the mahogany table, but no one in the Mitchell family offers her a chair. They watch her suffer standing up, their Christmas party laughter echoing off walls decorated with lights and garland, celebrating in a house whose deed carries a name they never bothered to read. Finally, Carol Mitchell announces to the room, her voice dripping with contempt as Sophia signs the final page. My son is finally free from the gold-digging nobody who trapped him with a pregnancy. But the woman they call a nobody has a father whose name makes grown men nervous. The woman they call a gold digger owns the very ground their celebration sits on. And the tears streaming down Sophia's face aren't tears of defeat. They're tears of a DeLuca daughter realizing her father was right all along. Jason steps closer, his cologne suffocating as he leans down to where Sophia stands hunched over the papers. You can leave now, he says, his voice cold and final. Brittany and I need to discuss nursery colors for our son. Brittany, his former secretary turned mistress, laughs from across the room, her hand resting on her own pregnant belly. 6 months along with Jason's second child, conceived while he was still married to Sophia. The room erupts in fresh laughter, Jason's brother raising his glass. To upgrades, he shouts, and the Mitchell family drinks to Sophia's replacement like she's already a ghost. Sophia's fingers curl around the pen so hard her knuckles turn white. She thinks about the day she met Jason 4 years ago at a hospital charity event where she'd been volunteering under her mother's maiden name, Russo, desperate to escape the suffocating world of mafia power and men who only saw her father's dangerous reputation. Jason had been different that night, or so she'd believed. He'd talked about his dreams of opening his own architecture firm, about designing homes for families who couldn't afford the big names. He'd held her hand and called her beautiful without once asking what she did for a living or where she came from. She'd fallen in love with his smile, with the way he sketched buildings on napkins while they talked. She'd believed he loved her for who she was, not what she had or what protection her name could provide. She'd been wrong. The marriage started crumbling 6 months in when Jason's firm failed. Sophia had offered to help through anonymous shell companies, but he'd refused at first, his pride wounded by his wife's suggestion that he might need her. Then came the questions about her family, why she never talked about them, why they'd had a small courthouse wedding instead of something grand. Sophia had deflected, still clinging to the fantasy that Jason loved her, not the power she was hiding. But Carol Mitchell had planted different seeds, whispering to her son about Sophia's suspicious past, about how she must be hiding poverty and shame. The Mitchell family had decided Sophia was a gold digger climbing above her station, and they'd made it their mission to remind her daily that she didn't belong. Sophia straightens slowly, her back aching from standing so long. She gathers the signed divorce papers with shaking hands, her wedding ring catching the Christmas lights one final time before she slides it off and places it on top of the documents. I hope she makes you happy, Sophia whispers, her voice so broken that for a second, just a flicker of a second, something crosses Jason's face. Guilt maybe, or recognition of what he's destroying. But Brittany calls his name from across the room and whatever moment existed vanishes. Carol Mitchell steps forward, blocking Sophia's path to the door. Before you go, she says, her smile sharp as glass, I want you to know that we've already told everyone in our circle about your gold-digging schemes. Good luck finding another family stupid enough to take in a pregnant charity case. The words hit Sophia like physical blows, each one designed to destroy whatever dignity she has left. Carol's friends nod in agreement, their faces twisted with satisfaction at watching Sophia suffer. Sophia looks at Carol, really looks at her, and something inside her shifts. The pain doesn't disappear, but it transforms into something colder, something harder, something very DeLuca. Thank you, Sophia says quietly, and the words confuse Carol enough that she steps back. Thank you for showing me exactly who you are. All of you. Sophia's eyes sweep the room, landing on each laughing face, each contemptuous smile, memorizing them with the precision her father taught her. Jason's brother, his sister who'd sneered at Sophia's grocery store clothes, his father who'd asked point-blank if she was after the Mitchell family money, all $60,000 of it. Sophia walks toward the door, her phone buzzing again in her pocket. Dad calling for the 17th time tonight. She'd stopped answering his calls 2 years ago when she'd married Jason, too ashamed to admit she'd chosen love over her father's warnings. Dominic DeLuca had investigated Jason Mitchell the moment Sophia brought him home, and he delivered the truth with the bluntness of a man who'd built a criminal empire by seeing through people. He's marrying you for what he thinks you'll become, her father had said. The moment he realizes you're not giving him access to our world, he'll show you who he really is. Civilians don't understand our world, princess. They don't understand loyalty. Sophia had called her father controlling and cut contact, believing Jason's promises instead. She'd been a fool. Sophia pushes through the Mitchell family's oak doors and steps into December cold that steals her breath. Snow falls softly, covering the driveway in white that looks pure until you remember what's underneath. Frozen ground and dead grass. Sophia walks to her car, a 10-year-old sedan she'd bought herself because Jason had said new cars were a waste of money. Even as he'd leased himself a BMW with money she'd secretly funneled into his failed business. Her hands shake so hard she drops her keys in the snow, and when she bends to pick them up, her pregnant belly throws her off balance. She catches herself against the car, breathing hard, her tears freezing on her cheeks. The baby kicks strong and insistent, and Sophia places her hand over the movement. I'm sorry, she whispers to her unborn daughter. I'm so sorry I brought you into this. I thought I could protect you from my world. I was wrong. She thinks about Jason demanding a paternity test 2 months ago, about how his family had laughed when she'd cried. She thinks about Brittany moving into the home Sophia had bought, sleeping in the bed Sophia had shared with Jason, raising her child in rooms Sophia had painted. The betrayal burns through her hot and consuming until she can barely breathe through the pain. Sophia pulls her phone from her pocket with shaking hands. 17 missed calls from Dad, 12 text messages. The most recent one reads simply, Sophia, please, I'm worried. Whatever happened, I'm here. She stares at those words, at the concern from the man she'd pushed away because she'd been too proud to admit he'd been right. Her thumb hovers over his name, but shame stops her. What does she even say? That she'd thrown away her family for a man who'd thrown her away the moment she became inconvenient? But her daughter kicks again, and Sophia thinks about what happens if she doesn't call. What happens if she tries to handle this alone? Pregnant and divorced and broken, vulnerable in a world where her father's enemies would love nothing more than to find a DeLuca without protection. What kind of mother does that make her? She presses call before she can talk herself out of it, and her father answers before the first ring finishes. Sophia. His voice cracks on her name and the sound breaks something inside her chest. Sophia, where are you? Are you safe? Talk to me, princess. Dad, Sophia whispers, and then she can't say anything else because sobs take over. 3 years of pain and loneliness and betrayal pouring out of her in the Mitchell family driveway. She cries for the girl who thought she could have a normal life. For the woman who'd believed love could exist without power complicating everything. For the mother who has to tell her father she'd failed at the one thing she'd been so sure she could do on her own. "Tell me where you are," Dominic DeLuca says, his voice steady and sure. The voice of a man who'd built a criminal empire from nothing, who'd survived wars both in boardrooms and on streets. "Tell me where you are, and I'll come get you. We'll fix this, Sophia. Whatever happened, we'll fix it." Sophia looks back at the Mitchell mansion, at the windows blazing with Christmas lights and celebration, at the family that destroyed her without ever knowing they just made the biggest mistake of their lives. She thinks about Carol's champagne toast, about Jason's cold dismissal, about Brittany's triumphant smile. She thinks about the signed divorce papers and the wedding ring she'd left behind, and the 3 years she'd spent loving people who'd been planning her exit the entire time. "I'm at the Mitchell house," Sophia says finally, her voice steadier now, the tears slowing. "I just signed the divorce papers. They threw a party to celebrate, Dad. They made me sign while they laughed. While I'm 7 months pregnant. Standing up. They called me a gold-digging nobody." She hears her father's sharp intake of breath, the dangerous silence that follows. Dominic DeLuca didn't become the most feared man in the city by letting people hurt his family without consequences. And Sophia can practically hear him calculating revenge through the phone. "Stay there," her father says, his voice cold as winter. "Don't move. I'm 10 minutes away." And Sophia? They have no idea what's coming. They don't know they just made the biggest mistake of their pathetic lives. The line goes dead and Sophia stands alone in the snow, her hand on her pregnant belly, her tears finally stopping. Inside the mansion, the Mitchell family celebrates their victory, completely unaware that the woman they just destroyed has made one phone call that will end everything they have. But Sophia doesn't feel victorious. She just feels tired and sad and so completely done with trying to be someone she's not. She leans against her car and waits for her father, watching snow cover the Mitchell driveway like it's trying to hide what happened here, like it's trying to make everything clean and new. But Sophia knows better now. Some stains don't wash away, and some betrayals never heal. They just teach you who people really are when they think you can't fight back. The Mitchell family is about to learn that lesson the hardest way possible. Black armored SUVs roll up the Mitchell driveway like a funeral procession, their headlights cutting through the snow and darkness with mechanical precision. Sophia watches from beside her car as 3 vehicles park in perfect formation, their engines idling in synchronization that speaks of professional security teams and careful planning. The rear door of the middle SUV opens and Dominic DeLuca steps out into the December cold, wearing a wool coat that costs more than Jason Mitchell's yearly salary, his silver hair catching the Christmas lights from the house like a crown. He walks straight to Sophia, his eyes scanning her face with the intensity of a man cataloging every tear, every bruise to her dignity, every hurt he's about to repay tenfold. "Let me see you," he says softly, his hands gentle as he tilts her face toward the light. His jaw tightens when he sees her red eyes, the exhaustion carved into her features, the way she's holding her pregnant belly like she's trying to protect her daughter from a world that's already proven cruel. "I should have come sooner. I should have dragged you home 2 years ago instead of respecting your choice to cut me off." Sophia shakes her head, fresh tears spilling over. "You were right about him, about all of it. I was so stupid, Dad. I thought I could have something real, something that wasn't about power or fear or business deals. I thought he loved me." Her voice breaks on the last word. Dominic pulls her into his arms carefully, mindful of her pregnancy, his hand cradling the back of her head like she's still his little girl who scraped her knee on the playground instead of a grown woman whose heart just got shattered by people too blind to see what they had. "You weren't stupid," Dominic says firmly, his voice carrying the authority of a man who'd negotiated with politicians and eliminated enemies with equal efficiency. "You were hopeful. You wanted to believe in goodness. That's not stupidity, Sophia. That's courage they don't deserve." He pulls back to look at her, his eyes hard as diamonds now, the softness reserved for his daughter replaced by something calculating and cold, something that made senators nervous and rivals disappear. But hope doesn't mean you let people destroy you. And courage doesn't mean you suffer in silence when you have the power to make them understand exactly what they've done. Inside the mansion, someone notices the SUVs. Sophia sees curtains move, sees faces appear in windows, sees the Mitchell family's curiosity shift to confusion, then concern as they count the vehicles and notice the security team standing at attention. Armed men in expensive suits who look like they've seen combat. Jason appears at the front door, his confidence from earlier faltering as he takes in the scene. His eyes moving from Sophia to her father to the small army of professional enforcers surrounding them. "Sophia," he calls out, his voice uncertain now. "What's going on? Who are these people?" Dominic doesn't answer Jason. Instead, he turns to the man emerging from the lead SUV, a sharp-featured man in his 50s carrying a leather briefcase that probably contains enough legal firepower to level a small country. "Frank," Dominic says simply, and the consigliere nods, understanding passing between them without additional words needed. 30 years of working together means they communicate in shorthand, in glances and gestures that speak volumes. Frank Romano opens his briefcase and removes a stack of documents, their weight and thickness suggesting this isn't a simple legal matter, but rather a comprehensive dismantling of everything the Mitchell family thinks they know about their lives. Carol Mitchell pushes past her son, her earlier champagne confidence making her bold in ways she's about to regret. "What is this?" she demands, marching down the driveway in heels that sink into snow with each step. "You can't just show up here with your little intimidation tactics. We have rights. This is our property and you're trespassing." She stops short when she gets close enough to really see Dominic DeLuca. Close enough to notice the custom tailoring, the watch that costs more than her house, the way he carries himself like a man who'd testified before Congress and made senators nervous, the way armed men stand at attention around him like soldiers protecting a general. "Your property?" Dominic repeats, his voice dangerously quiet. "That's interesting. Frank, what does the deed to 1247 Maple Ridge Drive say?" The consigliere doesn't even need to consult his papers. The property is owned by DeLuca Holdings, subsidiary Evergreen Properties LLC, purchased 18 months ago through a private transaction. The current occupants are residing under a lease agreement that as of tonight has been terminated due to breach of contract. Clause 17, subsection 3, hostile treatment of family members. Carol's face goes white. "That's impossible. We own this house. We've owned it for 15 years. But her voice wavers now, the confidence cracking like ice under pressure. Jason steps forward, his face confused and defensive. "What are you talking about? Sophia doesn't have any family with money. She's nobody. She works as a substitute teacher for God's sake. She drives a car from 2015. Dominic's smile could freeze oceans. "My daughter worked as a substitute teacher because she wanted to help children, not because she needed the money. She drove a modest car because she was testing you, Mr. Mitchell. She wanted to see if you'd love her without knowing she's Sophia DeLuca, only daughter and heir to the DeLuca family. We control the docks, most construction in this city, several legitimate businesses, and many other enterprises we don't discuss in polite company. Politicians return my calls. Judges remember favors. And people who hurt my family learn very permanent lessons about respect." The words land like grenades, and Sophia watches Jason's face transform from confusion to shock to dawning horror as he does the math, as he realizes what he's just thrown away. His brother appears in the doorway, still holding his champagne glass, but his hand has gone slack and the crystal is tilting, about to spill. Brittany stands behind him, her earlier triumph replaced by something that looks like panic as she understands she's pregnant by a man who just lost access to protection and power beyond her wildest imagination. "No," Jason whispers, but he's looking at Sophia now, really looking at her for the first time in months, and he's seeing things he missed. The way she carries herself despite her grief. The bone structure that comes from generations of power and good breeding. The education in her vocabulary that he'd dismissed as her trying to sound smart. The quiet authority he'd mistaken for weakness. "Sophia, is this true? Are you really DeLuca?" Sophia doesn't answer him. She doesn't owe him answers anymore. Instead, she watches her father work, watches him dismantle the Mitchell family with the precision of a surgeon and the ruthlessness of a man protecting his child. Frank, Dominic continues, please inform the Mitchell family of the additional complications to their situation. The consigliera steps forward, his voice crisp and professional. Jason Mitchell, you are employed as senior architect at Morrison & Associates, a firm that exists solely because of a capital investment from DeLuca Ventures 3 years ago. Investment arranged by Sophia to save your failing business without your knowledge. That investment is being withdrawn effective immediately, and the firm will enter bankruptcy proceedings by Monday morning. Carol Mitchell, you serve on the board of St. Mary's Children's Hospital, a position funded by annual donations from the DeLuca Foundation and our associated charities. Those donations cease immediately and your board seat has been terminated. Additionally, your husband's position at Coastal Insurance is eliminated as we're severing all contracts with companies employing individuals who demonstrated hostile behavior toward our family. Thomas Mitchell, your position as marketing director at Coastal Tech Solutions is eliminated tonight as DeLuca Industries is severing all contracts. The lease on this property terminates tonight. You have 72 hours to vacate. All utilities will be shut off in 48 hours. Carol sways on her feet, her face gray now. You can't do this. You can't destroy people's lives because your daughter got divorced. This is insane. But her voice has no power anymore. Just desperate fear as she watches her world collapse in real time. Dominic's expression doesn't change, but his voice drops even colder. I'm not destroying lives because of a divorce, Mrs. Mitchell. I'm responding to the fact that you forced my pregnant daughter to sign legal documents while standing, while you sat comfortable with champagne, mocking her pain. I'm responding to you calling my daughter a gold-digging nobody while she cried. I'm responding to you celebrating the humiliation of a woman carrying your grandchild. He leans closer. And I'm responding to the fact that you made Sophia DeLuca feel small. In my world, Mrs. Mitchell, respect is everything. You showed my daughter no respect. Now you learn what happens when you disrespect a DeLuca. The word grandchild hits Jason like a physical blow. He stumbles backward, his hand reaching for the doorframe to steady himself. The baby, he says, his voice hollow. Sophia, the baby is mine. I accused you of trapping me. I made you take a paternity test. But the baby is mine. And you're really a DeLuca, which means my child is. Sophia sees the calculation in his eyes, sees him doing the math on what he's just signed away. Not just a wife, but a dynasty. Not just a marriage, but generational power and protection. Not just divorce, but losing access to a world that would have made his children untouchable. His children would have grown up under the DeLuca name, protected by one of the most powerful families in the city. Now they're nothing. Your child, Sophia says, her voice steady now despite the tears still wet on her face, will carry the DeLuca name, not Mitchell. Your daughter will grow up knowing her grandfather loves her unconditionally. But her father threw her away before she was even born because he was too busy with his mistress to value what he had. Your child will have everything, Jason. Protection, power, family, legacy. Everything except you. The words destroy him. Sophia can see it. Can see Jason Mitchell finally understanding what his pride and Carol's poison and Brittany's manipulation have cost him. Brittany pushes forward then, her pregnancy evident as she moves. Jason, we have a baby coming too. You said you loved me. You said we'd build a life together. But her voice is panicked now because she's realizing that the man she thought was her ticket to a better life just became unemployed, homeless, and completely broke in the span of 5 minutes. Without protection in a city where the DeLuca name matters. Jason doesn't even look at her. His eyes locked on Sophia with something that might be regret or might just be grief over losing access to power beyond imagination. Dominic turns to Sophia, his voice gentle again. The ruthless businessman disappearing and the protective father returning. You don't have to stay here another second, sweetheart. Let's go home. Your old room is exactly as you left it, and I've already called Dr. Chun to come check on you and the baby. We'll make sure you're both healthy, and then we'll figure out the rest together. He wraps his arm around her shoulders, supporting her weight as exhaustion finally crashes over her like a wave. But before Sophia lets her father lead her to the SUV, she turns back to the Mitchell family one final time. Carol stands frozen on her driveway, her Christmas party ruined and her future demolished. Thomas has dropped his champagne glass in the snow, the crystal shattered and the liquid seeping into white like blood. Jason's father has appeared in the doorway, his face pale as he processes that his family just destroyed themselves by mocking the wrong woman. And Jason himself stands at the center of it all, his hand pressed to his chest like he's checking if his heart is still beating, his eyes full of everything he's lost and will never get back. "I loved you," Sophia says to Jason, her voice carrying across the snow and silence. "I loved you so much that I gave up everything to be with you. My family, my name, my protection, all of it. I wanted you to love me for me, not for what I could give you or what my name could do for you. But you never did you? You loved what you thought I could become, not who I was. You loved the idea of moving up in the world. And when you thought I was pulling you down, you threw me away like I was nothing." Her voice doesn't break this time, doesn't waver. She's done crying for Jason Mitchell. "Sophia, wait." Jason starts forward, but Dominic's security team moves in synchronization, blocking his path with bodies trained to protect the DeLuca family from all threats, including desperate ex-husbands. "Sophia, please, we can fix this. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. The baby. Think about the baby. She needs her father." But Sophia is already walking toward the SUV, her hand in her father's, her future opening up in front of her like a door she'd closed 3 years ago and can finally walk through again. "The baby needs a father who values her mother," Sophia says without turning around. "The baby needs a father who wouldn't force a pregnant woman to sign divorce papers while standing. The baby needs a father willing to fight for his family instead of replacing them the moment things get difficult. You're not that father, Jason. You never were." She climbs into the SUV with her father's help, the leather seats soft and warm, so different from the cold driveway and colder family she's leaving behind. Dominic slides in beside her and Frank closes the door with a solid thunk that sounds like finality. Like the closing of a chapter Sophia needed to end months ago. Through the tinted window, Sophia watches the Mitchell family stand in their driveway, their Christmas lights still blazing cheerfully like nothing has changed, like their entire world didn't just end. Carol has her hand over her mouth, finally understanding what her cruelty caused. Thomas is arguing with his father, probably about money, about lawyers, about how to fix this. And Jason just stands there staring at the SUV like he's watching his future drive away. Because he is. The convoy pulls away smoothly, leaving the Mitchell mansion behind. Sophia leans her head against her father's shoulder, feeling safe for the first time in 3 years. "What happens to them now?" she asks quietly, not because she wants revenge, but because she needs to understand what comes next. What her phone call triggered, what her father's love looks like when channeled through power and empire. Dominic's hand covers hers, his thumb brushing over her knuckles in the same comforting gesture he's used since she was small. "They lose everything they didn't earn," he says simply. "The house, the jobs, the social standing built on donations from our foundation. They lose the reputation they valued more than they valued you. And they wake up every morning for the rest of their lives knowing they threw away the DeLuca heir because they were too blind to see past their own prejudice." He pauses, then adds more softly, "But that's not your burden to carry, Sophia. Your job now is to heal, to prepare for your daughter, to remember that their blindness doesn't define your worth." Sophia closes her eyes, feeling the exhaustion in every bone, feeling her daughter moving inside her, feeling the weight of the last 3 years lifting like fog in morning sun. The SUV glides through city streets toward the DeLuca estate, toward home, toward the life Sophia walked away from and is finally ready to reclaim. Behind them, the Mitchell family faces a Christmas morning that will arrive with eviction notices and termination letters, and the complete destruction of everything they thought they had. But Sophia doesn't look back anymore. She's done looking back. She's looking forward now, toward her daughter's future, toward her own healing, toward the family that never stopped loving her even when she pushed them away. 6 months pass like pages turning in a book Sophia thought was finished, but is actually just beginning a new chapter. She stands in the nursery of the DeLuca estate, sunlight streaming through bulletproof windows that overlook gardens her daughter will someday run through. her hand resting on the crib where 3-week-old Grace DeLuca sleeps peacefully. The room is painted soft yellow, filled with toys and books and every comfort money can provide. But more importantly, filled with love from a grandfather who spent the first hour of his granddaughter's life crying tears of joy while holding her tiny hand. Sophia hears the sound she's been waiting for. Her father's footsteps in the hallway, steady and sure. Dominic appears in the doorway holding a folder, his face carefully neutral in the way that means he has news Sophia needs to hear but won't like. "The final reports," he says quietly, moving to stand beside her at the crib. Both of them watching Grace sleep with her small fists curled against her chest like she's already fighting the world. Sophia doesn't ask him to summarize. She already knows most of it from Frank's weekly updates. But hearing it all together hits differently. The Mitchell family lost everything. The house was auctioned to pay debts they'd hidden for years behind borrowed wealth and maxed credit cards. Carol's charity position disappeared along with her social standing when people realized the DeLuca Foundation had been her only claim to importance. Thomas moved back in with his parents until they couldn't afford their apartment either. All three of them now living in a 2-bedroom rental across town that costs more than they can manage. Jason's architecture firm collapsed spectacularly, taking his professional reputation with it. And now he works at a mall kiosk selling phone cases for minimum wage, while Brittany, who left him the moment his bank account hit zero, raises their son alone on government assistance. "He's been calling," Dominic says carefully, and Sophia's hand tightens on the crib rail. "Every day for 6 months. He leaves messages. He sends letters. He's begging to meet Grace, to apologize, to explain." Dominic pauses, his voice heavy with the weight of a father who wants to protect his daughter from more pain, but knows some decisions aren't his to make. "The legal team says we can block him completely. Parental rights can be terminated given his abandonment, his forcing you to sign divorce papers while pregnant, his documented cruelty. You'd never have to see him again. And Grace would never have to know he existed." Sophia looks down at her sleeping daughter, at the tiny person who has her father's nose and Sophia's eyes, who will grow up with every advantage, but also every complication of being a DeLuca. She thinks about Jason, standing in that driveway watching everything he'd destroyed drive away. Thinks about the messages Frank plays for her sometimes, where Jason's voice breaks with genuine regret. She thinks about what kind of mother she wants to be, what kind of woman Grace should see when she looks at her example. "No," Sophia says finally, her voice steady. "Grace deserves the truth when she's old enough to understand it. She deserves to know her father made terrible choices, but that I chose not to perpetuate pain. Block him for now while she's small and I'm still healing. But someday, when Grace asks about her father, I'll tell her the truth without poison. I'll tell her he was weak when he should have been strong. But that weakness doesn't mean she's not loved completely by the family who showed up." Sophia touches Grace's sleeping face, marveling at skin so soft it seems impossible. She'll know her grandfather walked through fire for us. She'll know her mother survived heartbreak and came out stronger. And she'll know that revenge isn't healing. It's just another kind of pain. We're DeLucas. We protect our own. But we don't have to destroy everyone who hurts us to prove our power. Dominic's eyes shine with tears he doesn't hide. "You're a better person than I am, princess," he says, pulling Sophia into a gentle hug. "I'd burn everything Jason Mitchell ever touched and feel no guilt." Sophia laughs softly against her father's shoulder, the sound lighter than it's been in years. "You already did burn everything he touched, Dad. You just left him alive to learn from it. That's the DeLuca way I want Grace to inherit. Power with wisdom, not just destruction." They stand together in the nursery, 3 generations of DeLucas in one room. The past healed and the future sleeping peacefully in yellow sunlight. Sophia thinks about the woman who signed divorce papers while crying at a Christmas party. Thinks about how completely broken she felt in that moment. That woman thought her life was ending. That woman thought she'd lost everything. But that woman didn't know yet that sometimes you have to lose everything false to find everything true. Sometimes you have to sign away the wrong future to make room for the right one. Grace stirs in her crib, her eyes opening slowly. And when she sees Sophia, she smiles. That toothless baby smile that makes everything worth it. Every tear, every heartbreak, every moment of pain that led to this perfect morning. Sophia lifts her daughter carefully, breathing in that new baby smell, feeling tiny fingers grip her own. "Hello, my love," Sophia whispers. "Welcome to your beautiful life." Outside, snow begins to fall, covering the DeLuca estate in white, making everything clean and new. And somewhere across town, Jason Mitchell probably watches the same snow and thinks about the family he destroyed, about the daughter growing up without him, about the moment he signed away the most valuable thing he'd ever have. But that's his story to carry now, his lesson to learn. Sophia's story is different. Sophia's story is about a woman who survived betrayal, reclaimed her power, and chose to build something beautiful from the ashes of what tried to destroy her. That's the story Grace will inherit. Not one of revenge, but one of resilience. Not one of bitterness, but one of strength. Not one of destruction, but one of wisdom. And when Grace is old enough to understand, Sophia will tell her that sometimes the people who try to break you accidentally set you free instead. And that freedom, that fierce and hard-won freedom, is worth everything it costs. The DeLuca way: power without cruelty, justice without poison, strength with grace. Where are you watching this from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because every week, we bring you stories of strength, redemption, and the kind of justice that reminds us that dignity can never be taken, only given away. This is Dark Heart Mafia, where power meets passion, and nobody messes with family. More powerful stories coming soon.